Dude, I learned a lot from doing your your open mics and stuff.
Hell yeah. Well, I'm glad. That's what they're for. They're for learning. They're for working things out. Open mics or gyms for that reason.
Yeah.
I also saw you at the gym not too long
Oh
ago.
yeah. No. Dude, that's crazy. Yeah, I started substitute teaching and
Wow.
there were teachers there
yeah.
too, and it was just it's a lot.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's this community.
Yeah.
So you were substitute teaching while you were here in...
Yeah, in Holland at Holland Middle School and Holland High School.
Nice.
And Holland Language Academy.
I did some work at Holland High School not terribly long ago. Probably around the time I saw you, I brought a safe driving simulator there.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, you know one of the reasons I am doing substitute teaching is because of you.
Okay, that's weird.
I'll tell you why though.
Because we love working with kids?
No, but that is a good thing.
They're not... Yes.
I
Anyway.
seen you do your stand-up, and you're so poised and in control and confident, and I knew that you've been doing reps, and I was like, dude, I know that if I want to do this, I have to do reps.
Right.
And so the substitute job was kind of coming about.
Right.
But I was like, dude, I know, I could see that you were gaining stuff other than, the writing
Other than
jokes.
just the joke part. And that really came from where we met. That came from Teen Challenge. I could never talk, in college even, I could never give presentations and
What?
things like that. I sucked at public speaking. I have bad anxiety in general. So I would just get really nervous.
Same.
But until Brother Darren brought me out on my first school rally at Muskegon High School.
Yeah.
That's when I started getting comfortable with public speaking because I was 21 at the time, talking to 60 so I'm in almost peers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was like I was talking to a bunch of friends of mine or something like that, which made it easier to then transition to churches where it's a lot different than school rally. I know you did both. You remember.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I did a school rally. I didn't do as many as you guys did because I think I was older, and they were like, oh,
Yeah.
we like to, or they like to keep me off
Right,
camera.
but no one could tell that you were older because you're tiny.
True. But, yeah, I remember going with you on a rally, church rally, and we were on different teams.
P. Sam's.
Yeah, I was on the Bombers.
Yeah, you're a bomber. I was on two teams. I was on Brother Darren's team, and then I got moved to. I was on 2 or 3 teams, I think. I went out once with the Bombers, but I was on PMAX mixed team.
You were doing a lot of testimonies, right?
Yeah. Well, no, not with PMAX mixed team. No.
Or I mean, with all the teams included.
I mean, yes, very rarely with PMAC. He was some of the rally teams would be everyone's going to get a chance to speak, or if you didn't last time, you will this time, that type of thing. PMAC had hand-picked stories that he wanted. And so he had a solid routine every time we'd go out, basically.
Oh.
So I don't know how many times, if any, I got to speak with PMAC.
So he's pulling this guy, this woman,
Yeah.
His favorites.
The guy was always Cleveland.
I was thinking about him today.
Yeah, if Cleveland or if a guy was being chosen, it was Cleveland. And the girls was usually Autumn, Taylor, Becky. Those were probably the main 3.
How do you think he chose?
Huh?
How do you think he chose?
Like an entertainer. He knows what the people want to hear.
Give the people what they want.
Dude, I mean, that's also where you learn about charismatic speaking and things like that, and catering to people who have a specific need, or, you learn that in church when you start listening to how people talk. I became a very big student of speech.
Yeah.
Because of stand-up comedy, and I was also trying to preach as well afterward. I had an internship after my graduation from TC. I was at a church here it was a church plant here in Holland. I was interning there. And that was after I'd already started stand-up, too. So there was also a bit of, I was given an ultimatum as well. If my internship would continue, or if my comedy thing would continue.
Fork in the road.
Yeah. I chose comedy.
Yeah, comedy.
Comedy. Because I can follow God from not behind a pulpit.
Yeah.
And yeah. But any Jew,
That's a hard lesson to learn, by the way.
Oh yeah, definitely, because it is something that I was passionate about and I felt like I was called to do.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, I also was very, very passionate about stand-up comedy and also felt called to do it. Like it was something that I've been good at my whole life, and now God prepared me with the tools in Teen Challenge to actually bring it to fruition.
Yeah.
And so, I think I just felt called to lead or called to speak to a flock, and I maybe misinterpreted that calling at first.
I don't think so.
I mean, at first. But I mean, who's to say they can't be one and the same?
Yeah.
It's just all going to happen in whatever timing.
Yeah, it's like you're on the same path or same road almost.
Exactly. I mean, I didn't really take a fork. I mean, I think both roads can run congruently,
okay.
you know? But yeah. So until, I think they can both also feed into each other, which they already have. Like from my speaking, giving testimony, speaking God's word, it gave me the confidence to speak my own words that God had gifted me, the knowledge and the ability to create and things like that. So I all of it I see as a testimony to God. It's a matter of how others see it.
Yeah, but you're able to see things that other people can't, which is like what makes a comedian so good.
I don't think it's, I see things that other people can't. I see things that other people don't care about, right. Which isn't better because then I have to make them care about it.
True.
Which is, I think, mostly the hard part. Which is, again, that's where like a fork will be, how do I make this into, you know how many opening of like sermons, every sermon usually to a big congregation will start with almost like a joke, or just a story that just an inspiring story, something like that.
Yeah.
All of those could be made into stand-up bits if you just turned at some point.
Yeah.
You can turn between making it funny and making it inspirational, and like showing what God has done. Like with good writing or good speech, like it's all the same tools, but just choosing a different path to take it in.
Yeah, I could see that. Like you almost pull the rug out and it becomes a joke.
Exactly.
You know, like.
Yeah, especially at a church setting, it's easy to take a left turn just because of the presumed context. But yeah, the assumed context.
I think about Grand Rapids First, and like the pastor would go up and preach, and he was funny, dude. The whole crowd would be laughing.
Exactly, because he needs to be engaging.
Yeah.
The best way to be engaging, I think, is to be funny.
True. Dude, that's something I remembered about your first testimony that I saw. Is like, dude, you had people laughing, and looking back on it, I'm like, dude, I think like it made sense to me that you're doing this now. Like, oh, I think he was meant to do this the whole time.
I oddly, because I don't know why, but I hear that often from like people that will come to Parrots like on comedy night and see me do comedy there from high school, and they're like, you know, this makes so much sense. Blah blah blah. I was like, I don't know why. Just because, I was always goofy, just a smartass. I was just a real smart aleck. But comedy, I do also feel that there was where I actually felt like, oh, I need to do stand-up when I leave here, was at Grand Rapids Christian High School, because we were in the auditorium for it. Usually we were just in a classroom talking to, 20 kids or so, whatever, 20 to 60 max. We were in the auditorium at one of the biggest high schools in Grand Rapids. So it was like 1,100 students, and we were all
terrified.
It was nerve-wracking at first, but I'm not the first to go up, so a couple other people go up. We're only supposed to be doing like 5 minutes or whatever. I went up there and like maybe 3-4 minutes, just trying to relate to them. I was like, I know a lot of you are really just happy to get out of the classroom right now. You don't care about what we're talking about at all. I know if I were you, I wouldn't care. I'd be like these two who are just sleeping on each other. I'd be like these two guys just sleeping right now. And that got a big laugh because people around them were like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Exactly. And only one of them woke up. But after that, I got off stage and I did like 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone was like making jokes about it in the van afterward. And Brother Darren was like, I thought we were going to have to come out there and pull you off stage, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I just didn't realize I was talking for that long.
Yeah.
Just because I finally felt comfortable.
You were in the flow.
Yeah. And before that, I was always talking to fill time. But this actually just felt good.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Dude, that's wild. I was going to ask, do you remember your first open mic?
Yeah, my first open mic was down in Kalamazoo. I think it was either late April or early May of 2018.
How'd it go?
Not awful, but not awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I think I just did mostly jokes about being mixed. And I don't know. I think if I scoured Facebook, I might be able to find it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was mostly, again, just jokes about me and stuff. I started off with, because the song I came out to was Right Round. I think, exact. You spin my head right round.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and that, I think it was like Flow Rider. That version, and you may not know or remember or have heard of this at all. Are you familiar with? Feel free to edit this out. Timestamp it.
I know what you're gonna say.
Meatspin.com. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So. I made a joke about that after, because she had also said, give it up, his first time here, Hunter, his first time ever on stage, Hunter Miles, blah, blah, blah. And people started clapping, and my first joke was like, I wish that happened when I lost my virginity. First time, blah, blah. I think it's a hack joke that many first timers make. I'm not positive. I hadn't seen it before. That was my second open mic I'd ever been to.
Yeah.
First one I had performed at. And then because that song was so fresh in my head, I think I had made a joke about meat spin.
Yeah.
And then how, like, if you got to however many spins, it would just tell you you're officially gay. And then I went into my mixed jokes.
Meat spin was my whole high school, dude.
That was middle school for me, but yeah.
That and Lemon Party.
Yep. Lemon Party, Blue Waffle.
Just terrible.
The hits, the hits. One Man, One Jar.
Goodness gracious.
Sandbox, I think,
dude.
that was another one.
Yeah, there was like E-Bombs World.
Yeah, it was a bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah. Or like Rotten.com or something.
I think that's really what started desensitizing a whole generation.
Do you think it really does?
Oh, definitely. I think it desensitized a lot of people. Well, I think it's the same way that like growing up with an alcoholic parent can go. Either it desensitizes you to it and you're drawn to it, or like you search it out.
Yeah.
Or it disgusts you, and that's why you no longer scour the internet.
Right.
Because you're like, oh no, the internet is full of disgusting, scary things, and I'd rather just leave it all alone.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it did that to anyone from our generation, but it'd be better for them. Probably.
I remember guys talking about, even like Teen Challenge, they would talk about how they would get in this like a path down this rabbit hole.
Oh yeah.
And like it was pretty dark stuff, but like it wasn't anything.
It wasn't,
like porn and stuff, but it would be
right.
like hardcore.
Just gory stuff and things like that.
And he would say like ads that would pop up would be like similar with it, or like
Exactly.
corresponding or something. And like I didn't realize like that mixed with drugs could probably like callous you quick.
Oh yeah, definitely, because drugs also bring you into different environments usually to either buy drugs or the community that drugs bring in general. Which brings you into different environments, different situations and contexts. That's what I've always said was the real gateway drug. It doesn't matter what drug you choose.
Yeah.
It's your gateway into that community and those experiences. That's what's really detrimental.
Whoa.
But yeah, and that will callous you because you'll start to think that those things are normal or ordinary, everyday. Everyone does things like this. And then you go to Teen Challenge and you're like, oh, it does seem like everyone did things like this.
Yeah.
And then you come back out to the world changed now because you've been a year removed from it.
Right.
And now you're like, oh, people don't live like that.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Oh yeah, life's different. Different. That's all. Better, worse, whatever. It's just different.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely different. Was it different leaving? Like, what hit you first, or like, was it shocking?
What hit me first was probably a pack of cigarettes. I think that was one of my first purchases when I got, and they tasted disgusting, and I hated it.
Oh.
But I kept going because you grow to love it.
It's an acquired taste.
Yeah, it is an acquired. At first, also stupidly, because I never put them down still. I just thought they were stale. That happened to me when I went to jail before as well. I was in there for 25 days, and I had a pack of cigarettes, like a fresh pack of cigarettes, in my car when I'd gone to jail. So I got out of jail. I went there myself. I was only supposed to serve a weekend, and then because I was set to do like, yeah, I know, they really got me. They really hooked me in, just like Adobe got you, man.
Adobe.
Isabella County and Adobe, they're on my list.
Gosh darn it.
But yeah, an officer said I was acting weird, so they drug tested me when I got there, and knowing I was going to be dirty for weed, I was just like, duh, okay. And then I'd also dropped dirty for cocaine somehow after legitimately, and this is not just an addict talking, legitimately not having, I'm years removed from it, I can admit it, not having used cocaine like within like a month. But I had taken a bill that was under my ashtray that I did use for cocaine.
Right.
And I put that with the rest of my money in my glove compartment. And I tested positive. No, I didn't lick it right away. I didn't lick it at all. But also, cocaine, like acid and some other drugs, can be absorbed through the skin.
Oh yeah.
And it was a barely positive from even my probation officer's admittance. He goes, but I don't.
Let it slide, dude.
Yeah, thank you. You have the ability. So, anyways, instead of doing like 14 days on the weekends, I just had to do 25 straight.
Dang.
But I say that to say I came out to my pack of cigarettes, and after not smoking for almost a month, and the first one I lit tasted stale, I was like, I gotta get a new pack. I left this one out and it got stale. And then I went to get a new pack on my drive back to Holland from Mount Pleasant. I was like, definitely gonna need cigarettes that aren't stale.
Right.
And wouldn't you have it? The next pack I bought, also stale. No, it wasn't stale. I wasn't used to cigarettes anymore.
Yeah, that's just how they were.
That's just how they actually taste.
Right.
Gross.
Dude, that's wild.
But I still got them.
I was thinking about TC. Like, one thing we learned there is like people.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's only grown for you since then. Like, you travel, you interact with all these people, podcasts.
Right.
Like, is there anything that you take away from that, like, that you've learned about people?
It is. The people learning aspect comes from, I think, when it comes to dealing with people and communicating with people is something I took away heavily from Teen Challenge, which is hilarious because there was a whole population of people we weren't allowed to communicate with at all.
True.
Or interact with. Kyle, for you don't know, maybe, probably. The men and women at Teen Challenge were not allowed to interact
Couldn't
at
even
all.
look at them.
Couldn't look at them, talk to them, let alone touch them. But it was better for the most part, for most of us. But my takeaway from how to deal with people and communicate with people mostly came like in the dorms and things like that. Like you had to one manage personalities in general, knowing when to choose your battles, and addressing things, communicating with people in good forms of communication, healthy forms of communication, and addressing confrontation and things like that. It helped me grow mentoring skills in general, because as a grader, were you a grader as well?
Oh no, I wasn't a grader.
No, but you remember me being you a grader. But as a grader, I also had to do more research and things like that, so I was able to answer questions, because people would come to me with questions, and not just because I have the answers, but I also had to get all of my homework and all that stuff done so I could help others with things like that. And that also helped me, and this is maybe where I've never fully progressed really, because sometimes I think I still do it with a little bit of condescension, but it was a place that I had to work on that. Because after Teen Challenge, I was like a tutor and a mentor with like Good Samaritan. So where I felt like I could do it without condescension, because I was working with children as well.
Yeah.
But it just taught me patience with people and public speaking completely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something you see change while guys are in there too. Like first lift up they do, and then by the end they're like, in front of 60 dudes.
They start getting more passionate too, and more vulnerable and open to talk about things. That's something also that like I've taken away from TC is like the vulnerability and openness, because
that it's okay.
Yeah, because you realize how many people have stories and just wild backgrounds and things like that, to where it doesn't make your stuff sound as crazy. It doesn't make you sound as nuts. I'm just admitting something that other people have maybe gone through or experienced, but won't admit it or are afraid to, shameful, whatever.
Dude, that was like a big weight off my shoulder that I like didn't realize what happened. But you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, like these people know me, like they are me. You know? Like,
exactly. And I think that's something that you'll find in every recovery community is one of the first breakthroughs is that like feeling of belonging, I think. But also sometimes that's what is lost in the Christian community. Because a lot of the times you'll go to, if it was maybe just a Christian retreat, without knowing everyone there, where at TC, after some time, we were like, oh, these people do know, like, my experience. These people are me.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that kind of acceptance from differing communities if the only tie is a one God that we follow. I think we start to ignore others' experiences and how we can connect beyond that God.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Like it could be like a surfacey.
Right, where you're like, no, this is my community. This is who I fellowship with. But I was like, is your fellowship? I love Christian fellowship, and you're diving into the Word together, seeing how it can relate to your life and how it can build you, feed you. But are you actually getting to know the people you're fellowshipping with? Like, do you know them at all?
Right.
And I think also what Teen Challenge taught me, and I'm thankful for it, I'm so thankful for it, is networking skills, and even fake networking skills, to where I'm just fake listening skills. And because, again, as a pastor, I feel like a lot of us got that, like from pastors, I mean. A lot of us did get where they are acting like they're actively listening, and sometimes they are, because then they pray for you and they mention specific things. Some of that is also, I'm not also just here to bash all pastors or reveal all the tricks of magicians, but I think it's charismatic communication, where you're listening for key things. Like even anything like that can just be formulaic. And I think that's where my relationships in those communities just kind of feel less intimate, because I feel like a lot of it was servicing
Yeah.
a context, you know?
Like a job.
Yeah, because they are doing their job.
Right.
Whether you're called to do it or paid to do it, it is your job. But sometimes with a job, you can also just be going through the motions.
Yeah, there's other stuff in your mind or whatever.
Right. And then like where I felt like got the, I guess, experience with like the networking and like the active listening and things like that was like after services, like at lunch, at like the luncheons and potlucks and all that stuff.
Yeah, everyone coming up to you.
Exactly. And that's also where I had to semi-learn.
My
like,
daughter went through the. Yeah.
Precisely. And that's where you're just like, oh, yeah, let's pray for your daughter.
Yeah.
Because you don't have anything else you can do. You're only connecting on this one thing, which is traumatic for both of you, which is a nice trauma bond. But you also, you don't know anything else about their family. You don't know where they grew up. You don't know what they do on the weekends, you know? And maybe you learn that through, if you really hit it off, which was very rare,
Yeah.
when you're just trying to eat a free meal at a church.
Great, awesome meal though.
Always great meals.
Homemade.
But when you're just trying to eat,
Yeah,
because this is better food than maybe I get 2 meals today.
Yeah.
You're not, a lot of it was for me just trying to, just so I could continue eating or almost shoo away people, but also in a nice way so you come off nice.
Yeah.
Or you just get stuck. You learn lessons. You learn lessons in getting stuck in Pastor Sam's office.
Yeah.
And so you learned communication games. That's what I took away from communication in
Like
Teen
a power
Challenge.
struggle?
Not always struggle, but recognition.
This is happening. This is going on.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so it allows you to analyze things through a different lens after being in a different environment and things like that. Especially in a place like Teen Challenge, I think a lot of people who are not on their psychotropic drugs, medication and things like that, were forced to deal with anxieties that they hadn't before, myself included.
Same.
So where my attention was more keen on interactions, and where I had to also deal with the perspective issue, where I'm like, oh no, people aren't just staring at me. Like, it's not always about me, like that self-centered anxiety kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or like, they're not thinking about our last interaction as much as I am right now. They can't be. It gave me that kind of perspective.
Right.
But yeah, when it came to things like getting out of P. Sam's office in under an hour, like you recognize patterns, you recognize behaviors, and you realize what you have to do
Yeah.
in order to not prolong the conversation.
Script.
Yeah. No, I mean, not even a script, but a lot of people had one. They would bring him to one sports thing, and then you guys would spend time talking about that. He goes,
Muhammad Ali, dude.
we never even got, yeah. He goes, oh, we never even got into the word. And then he'll find a scripture.
Right.
You guys will pray on it, and then you get out. But you just gotta make a turn quick to to avoid something you don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
Or someone taking all the power. You give them the power, but in a directed, way.
Yeah. When you look back on those, like, say those office visits and stuff, like, did you have any takeaways that you remember that were, or like looking back on it, like, because I know in the moment I was going through the same stuff, dude. You're like,
Right.
feel trapped or whatever.
I don't know. Looking back on it, almost, I love them. Almost nothing that, like, advice-wise, besides generic advice about be a man, be there for your family, things like that. It was always and then find you a good woman. A good woman. Not that I'm gay, but I'm just saying, find you a good woman, and she'll love all of that. Maybe get back together with your sons, Mom. I just realized also my Pastor Sam is a little bit of Joe Biden. But also,
come on, man.
He's pushing relationships and traditional values on a generation where we've progressed past some of those values. Mostly, just because you have a child with someone doesn't mean you have to be with that person. So to force that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And things like that. I don't know why I chose that specifically.
Oh, yeah.
But also, my son's mom is a lesbian, so that was never going to work, Pastor.
Nice.
But I know you don't want to acknowledge that either. But when it comes to those office visits, again, it was more of a lesson I wasn't trying to learn, but I ended up learning with how to communicate with people you don't agree with. Just like we were talking about other podcast hosts, like why are they always so agreeable? It's like sometimes you're just trying to be polite and not cause a stir.
Right.
Like I think you realize what's better for this situation is also I'll express my opinion. I'll let you know that maybe we don't see eye to eye on that, but this is a man who will spend eternity, which I think that's why he's still going. He will spend eternity making sure you try to get to his thought as well.
Yeah.
And not him specifically. No. Many people like this in my life and also at Teen Challenge.
Right.
But that's where we can disagree and actually neither of us, have to be right, can be right, really, especially in this faith-based conversation. None of us can for sure be right. So you feel it better to just leave it alone.
Right. Do you think the Bible lines up with some of those traditions, or do you think it was more personality and things outside of that? Because a lot of the Bible...
I think it was cultural context as well.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is cultural context and maybe just through the eyes of the powerful, the powerful people at the time, I think controlled what went out to the masses as well, when it comes to how the Bible is dispersed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the context of the Bible has to be considered when you're talking about how long ago it was. So when we talk about traditional things, and where the conversation becomes, not always, but between conservative and progressive things, as a society, we have to learn and we have to progress. So I don't understand why we would stick in a technically conservative mindset when generally, and I think the Bible also talks about the active cycle of moving on and being renewed, meaning that's a progressive thing. So I think we're all progressively being renewed in the mind and things like that, to where some may see it as tolerance, some may see it as evolving with love in general.
Yeah.
When it comes to some of those non-traditional things that we're talking about in the Bible, or where it'd go against traditional biblical thoughts.
I understand. So, how do you describe what happened to you, to be able to pull you from the situation when you were in? Do you think God did that, or do you think time away from it did that, or
I think God gave me the tools and the time away.
Yeah.
And put the people in my life that needed to reach me where I was. And because when you think about that context, it's crazy. And I think God creates that context.
Yeah.
Because I would have never known about Teen Challenge if it wasn't for a friend of mine who I went to high school with, who only went to Teen Challenge because his dad went to Teen Challenge, but also only went to Teen Challenge to avoid legal stuff.
Right.
Mine wasn't to avoid legal stuff. It was. I mean, if I had progressed, it would have progressed. That's how progression works. But God intervened through others in my life, people that He's placed in my life. Not only pillars of faith, but people I genuinely believed in. Like, I had the support of my pastor, who wasn't just like my youth pastor. He was also my mentor at the time, even through all of my bullshit.
Right.
He was someone who regularly just checked in with me and would take me out to breakfast, blah, 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 things like that. So without that, which God had built up in my life, like growing up, and then at 21 years old, when I was ruining everything in my life, He was like, don't worry, we've put the people in place to, guide you and direct you, and all of this has already been working. And so when I was finally falling out, if I didn't grab that, again, it would have progressed, it would have gotten worse. But I had to make that call to Brother Darren, and again, who I wouldn't have felt even comfortable talking to at that time if it wasn't for his relationship that he had with my friend already. And so, other people have to fail for me to succeed, but
Yeah.
but and I definitely think that was God's intervention, and it turned my life around completely.
Praise God.
Amen.
Yeah, there was some funny stuff that happened at TC.
Definitely.
Like just with the characters and people there.
Well, and a year isolated in a place with a revolving door of cast members is hilarious as well. Rest in peace, some of them, but
True.
a lot of them as time goes on. But again, we can't all be lucky because some of it is the luck of context and timing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who go through recovery multiple times, maybe just finding the right timing. Like maybe this time in their life, not everything was lining up in the correct or incorrect way for them for this to stick.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and why does it stick sometimes and not other?
Right.
Yeah, it is timing.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I was also lucky getting in so early, getting into crack so early, but also getting into rehab so early, because it gave me perspective that not many of my peers had at that time. And when I got out, I was better with that perspective as well, because not only while we were in there, I made new friends who were also addicts.
Yeah.
Some of them left, still addicts and still using. Lost them after building that relationship with them and knowing I was losing them to drugs. So when I got out of Teen Challenge, I had that perspective now that I didn't have before. I'd never lost anyone to overdose.
Yeah.
But in Teen Challenge, I lost people that I considered my brothers that I lived with for months, some weeks, some days, but...
Yeah.
And then so when I came out, I didn't want to have that. With that perspective, I didn't want to have that happen again. Now, has it happened again? Sadly, yeah.
Yeah.
But my way of trying to prevent that, I felt was the right way, to either let them know how much this means to me, that I don't lose you like I have lost others. Because I've known you longer, this actually means something to me. Where, not to say that those didn't, but this is more than a month long of knowing you.
Yeah.
Like, I've grown up with you. We've gotten to, you know what I mean? To where I think just that perspective wasn't conveyed the best way or well enough or whatever. And that's all I can say for my end of things, because you can't help someone change if they don't want to or if they don't see the reason why. But it gave me that perspective that, and then with a new perspective of a closer perspective, that I even tried to distance myself from, because I didn't want to feel that if it were to happen. And of course it happened, and I still felt it even worse because I wasn't right there, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it reminds you to, love the people you got, you know, while you can.
Right. Why do you think it's easier to make, or do you think it's easier to make friends in there, or like brothers? And I know we talked about like a recovery setting and stuff, but do you think there's anything else going on? Like, why was it so easy for us to forgive and to show compassion in there?
Knowing you're going to see him again tomorrow. I think, that's the funny thing about social media is that's why you can feel like you can say anything on the internet, because you're never going to see that person again.
Yeah.
No, you're going to be sleeping feet away from this person tonight.
Yeah.
And for the foreseeable future. So how about you handle this?
Better be resolved.
Exactly, because however big that building is, it gets small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The community is small. And with all that time together in isolation, you learn more about people, rather than just the common experiences that come from like a group in recovery, or a group of addicts in general.
Yeah.
With in or not recovery. Excuse me. You guys have a lot of the same experiences or similar experiences, or you can speak on similar experiences and relate that way. But with the just more time, that's like the same surface level of God, like is just the God experience and the addict experience. But then you still have to go deeper than that and actually know your neighbor.
Yeah, it takes time.
Exactly. And I think that's something that some people don't do. They don't get time to. They're just like, oh no, this person is a part of my community. That's cool. I know them. I know their name. And
Yeah.
yeah. And I know part of their story. I know how they got to God, or I know how they got to rehab, or I know how they got to stand up, but I don't know anything beyond that.
Right. Yeah, I think one thing I think about that and like Teen Challenge is like people from all different walks of life like speak into you in a way, you know?
Right.
And like you almost learn like I always saw it as like, I know God says like the Holy Spirit will guide you. And so I was always, or like he taught me to be open to what other people had to say.
I think, that openness is something that a lot of people they don't come into a program like that with, especially if they're already kind of adverse to Christianity in general too.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be open to hear from other people and hear God through them. And
again, and that comes with discernment. Is to know, is this God speaking through someone to me? Is this God speaking into me through someone?
Yeah.
Or is this someone who thinks that they're speaking God's word, or God's using them as a vessel? Which, maybe not for this message, you know, but.
Did you remember anything specific of like someone said something, you're like, dude, I know that's from God? Like, I know it happened a lot, so like I can't even remember anything specific.
I was going to say specifically, no. I remember the context of it was some. I know there was Brother Darren had like a couple things that like really hit Pastor Dan. Actually, I think without it being direct, often it's like sometimes it was, but without it being direct, I felt God speaking to me through him.
Yeah, what's that feel like? I guess is the question.
It's kind of. And it's a matter of perspective too. If you truly believe in God, then you feel like, for me, like an overwhelming sense of appreciation. Someone sees me. I feel like someone sees me and it's warm. It's like goosebumps, that like a physical feeling or physiologically, it's goosebumps because you feel like. I'd imagine you feel like someone who has been talking about aliens existing your whole life, and then you actually, one is just like, hey, I'm right here.
Yeah.
And you're like, I knew it. But like, it's got to be that type of thing. And also, yes, I'm comparing God to aliens.
Yeah, I always think about it. I mean, Jesus came from heaven. He's
Exactly,
basically
dude.
an alien, right?
Well, he was an alien in more than one way.
Right.
Illegal. Sorry.
No, yeah, that's why I always think of it as like, think of Jason Bourne or like any like CIA movie. They're
getting activated.
well, that'd be cool too. But I mean, like when they just give them instructions, they're like, you're gonna go to Benton Harbor and a door's gonna open. You're like, what are you talking about?
Right.
But then you actually go and like God leads you, and somehow like this thing happens, or someone says something that speaks directly into what you're doing. You're like, oh my gosh, dude. Like,
or where you're like, I've already been praying on this all morning, and how are you just
yeah.
speaking specifically to my situation.
Can you see my freaking soul, dude? Like, what's happening?
Who sent you?
Who sent you? Dude, that's a good way to put it. Dude, that's wild. Yeah, TC was a great time in our life.
I needed it.
Yeah. How do you describe it to other people?
I almost just said I enjoyed it. Sometimes I did.
I always think it's like high school where like looking back I enjoyed it, but in the time
It's just tough and I want to go home.
Yeah.
But yeah, how do I describe it to other people? Glowingly. No. I say it's a year-long live-in Christian discipleship rehab program that you go to church 5-6 times a week. You go to class like it is high school. Most of it's like a college camp almost type of feel, but the food's not great. And you can't talk to the women. Everything is donation based, which means you get a lot of expired food. And yeah, but it's like it's similar to jail with a tiny bit more freedom.
Yeah, there's a lot going on at once.
Yeah.
Because like you said, there's people who are forced to be there.
Exactly, too.
There's people who like just want to go and get away. Like
some people just vacationing, dude. They go, 3 hots in a cot. Why not?
I always thought if you like went there and they're like, yeah, you have to wear purple on Tuesday, you'd be like, oh, okay, I guess I'm wearing purple Tuesday.
I guess I just have to.
Yeah. I remember getting there, I had a hat and a beard, and like measly, he was like,
right.
Yeah, you can't wear the hat inside. I'm like, what's that? He was like, you're going to shave your beard. I was like,
what are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, they get you.
Yeah, feels like a cult at first, and then you realize it is. No.
Of sorts, I guess.
Yeah, I know. It's a cult that lets you out. It's cool. Again, of all the cults I've been a part of, I'm kidding.
Would you recommend it for other people?
Yeah, and I have.
Yeah.
I have recommended it for a few people. Because, again, you're only going to be judged with what you could do. All I can do is point people to what's worked for me. If this isn't the timing for them, I can't control that.
Right.
But every time they ask me, I can tell them where to go. Because for me, it did work. I don't know what's going to, when it comes to going to meetings outside of that, or like non-inpatient, like outpatient rehab and stuff like that. I don't know. I know that it doesn't work great for a lot of people, and I know what did work well for a lot of people I know, and that was Teen Challenge.
Would you ever recommend following Christ to other people? Or the Bible and stuff?
If they're open to it, definitely. I think the mistake that a lot of people make in proselytizing or just going about with missionary work or ministering to people in general is what you see at pride rallies or like pride rally protests. You're talking to people who are you're coming at them, not to them. You're coming at them.
Yeah.
With a message that they context,
Yeah.
Again, better time, maybe timing, but also to a lot of people who aren't, no matter if you were here or not, they would not hear your message because they don't want to hear your message. And why cast your pearls before swine? Not to mean that any of us or any queer people are swine, but if they're not going to hear the message and they've shown that, why are you wasting your time that you could be ministering to someone who will?
Right. It's saying that we value these things and to give it to... Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's stuff I always thought about. Dude, imagine someone like picketing and protesting me when I'm like using drugs or doing my thing. Like,
right. Like that wouldn't... It wouldn't stop me.
No,
It wouldn't stop me if I had known outside of a truck stop where I was doing cocaine or smoking crack that there was like 8 people out there just stop the crack, that would be cooler.
Yeah,
because now I'd feel like a badass, dude.
Yeah, you're doing it in the face of these people.
Hell yeah, dude. And that's what I feel queer people feel like, badasses, and they are. Yar. Sorry.
No, it is kind of like that makes me uncomfortable when people pick it and like take these stands against people because they're not showing Christ.
Compassion. They're not showing love.
Right. And I don't know how you even combat that, other than like loving them, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you have to love them again, but how do you do that? What do you go up to? Like, it is tough to love people who are now taking the word of God and making it hate. Right. Which is blasphemous. Right. But to then love them and not just also cast your own judgment, I think that's overrated, dude. Yeah, judge them. No. Judge them. Judge them as people judge them as people who, like you, are flawed. Who, like you, are misinterpreting some things sometimes. Who are misdirecting what good faith they have and things like that. So I take it with understanding, unless it's complete ignorance, and then who am I to just spend time trying to understand someone who's not...
Yeah, beating a dead horse.
Exactly. Someone who's not even trying to be logical with someone who's not working with logic, If they don't understand...
2 different games.
Exactly. 2 different fields.
Right. Yeah, that's a tough thing, dude. It's kind of countercultural right now. Definitely countercultural to follow God.
I mean, but also I think it's making it swing back.
True.
Because that's, it's a pendulum. And everything repeats itself. I mean, the only reason we're like that pride rallies and things like that are able to happen is because the pendulum swung one way, and the reason that they're being protested is because that pendulum is swinging the other way, and that's
right.
I think that's just because. Also, I don't think any time those forces are going to meet equally. I think it's always a matter of the swing.
Do you think learning about this like countercultural thing has helped you in like your podcast and stand up? Because that's kind of countercultural. Like everyone, they work 9 to 5. Like they're not out preparing jokes and dude, you live a different life,
Right, and sometimes it's not to my benefit. But it's again trying to trust a bigger picture and things like that. But I don't see anything as counterculture. I see it all as culture and just different pockets of culture, different genres and things like that. So I think becoming well versed, and that's something that also the Christian community fails to do, is to, because we were told often, like, remember Lot's wife. Like, don't even, you can't go back to those places. You can't talk to those people. You can't, and I understand, but when you speak in absolutes, it sounds absolutely ridiculous to me. So to say that I can't talk to any of those people ever again, or but I'm also supposed to go back and minister what I've learned, not to them, but like to people who are open to hearing it. And also, if they were open to hearing it, they probably would have heard it from someone who wasn't me, and someone they trust who's not an addict. But I do understand using my story to inspire others. So I understand it all, but.
I always thought about those extremes, and I always looked at it like from basketball, like, I think he's like a defensive coach, where like nothing would ever be good enough, but you like want to teach it to the point of like
exactly where it's habit.
Yeah. So I kind of get that, but dude, Hunter, thanks for doing this.
Dude, Lauren, thank you so much for having me.
I want to tell you before, dude. I told you before, but it's crazy to know someone who's like pursuing the thing like a passion they love, and it like encourages me to do that. And dude, there's probably been a lot of different things that I've like seen in you that I wanted to have in me.
Oh, likewise. You have amazing physique. I'm really trying to get.
Thank you. I've been working out a little bit.
I know. I've seen you.
No, but I appreciate you, man. Thank
Likewise.
you.
I love to see what you're doing too, man.
Thank you. Sounds great. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but do we
I
get a
appreciate
clap? How do we do that?
Thank you.
There we go. Nice, dude.
Come here, dude.
Come on. Love you, Hunter.
Love you, man.
Cool.
Hell yeah. It was a good time.
That's right.
Check out my podcast. It's called Where Is This Going?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're
Dude, I
fine.
should have said that first.
Put it in the show notes.
Oh, true.